6.5 is on the road here in Los Angeles with Cisco. It's been a great event and shocking, Daniel. We've been talking a lot about AI, whether that's networking, security, data, and we even heard compute today.
Yeah, we saw Tom Brady, which by the way was quite a bit of fun. And of course, you know, we are seeing this kind of evolutionary period. You could call it revolutionary because it's happening so fast that we're, you know, really seeing the practical part of AI entering aggressively into enterprises. You know, and companies like Cisco, who we're here with, are really focusing on that enterprise. I mean, talk about a company that has deep roots inside of big enterprises. And yes, we hear all about the cloud and the hyperscalers, but where's all the AI going to need to happen? Where's all the data? So this was a really great week, a lot of learnings here.
Yeah, so let's talk about the product strategy. And you all know I'm a recovering ex-product person in the industry, but I'd like to welcome Jeetu. Jeetu, great to see you.
Good to see you, Patrick.
Just love you rolled out your philosophy of products, and that speaks to all us product people and ex-product people, recovering product people like myself. So thanks for coming on the show.
You can take the guy out of product, you can't take product out of the guy.
It's hard.
So you will always be a product person, my friend.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about when you say recovering. We only track the entire industry, every technology company and platform, and spend most of our life looking at it, talking, evaluating it, sharing our perspectives on it.
Yeah.
You're going to need a new line.
No, it's like a product smorgasbord being an industry analyst.
Now, when you always tell people you used to have a real job.
That's right.
That's funny because you're an analyst.
You know, a little bit of trivia. You used to be a product person, now an industry analyst. I used to be an industry analyst, now a product person.
Gosh, maybe we just did the high five
I don't know that I've ever really seen that evolution, especially with such a rapid ascent into such a big job. Gosh, that's fascinating. So maybe someday we can do some real work. Just kidding, Jeetu. So your passion's contagious. I've listened to you. You did the cameo yesterday. You did the big keynote today. You did some great work in front of actually the analyst crew in the Q&A yesterday. All in on AI is my sense. And of course, I wouldn't say it's a pivot, but I'd say that Cisco has been thoughtful. It's been a bit patient. It hasn't rushed to AI wash everything it's doing, but the moment is now. Talk a little bit about kind of how you're thinking about that.
You know, one of the lessons that I've learned in this is when there's a massive platform shift and a megatrend that happens in the industry, you should never fight the megatrend. You should always use it as a tailwind. And if you think, and now the difference is, you have to know the difference between when is it a megatrend versus a hype cycle.
Yes.
Right? And so if you, like Web 2.0, it was completely ridiculous what was going on there. You couldn't even go out, you could sit down and talk to someone for 45 minutes, and I had no idea what they were talking about or what Web 2.0 is. With AI, you didn't have that. So the reality is when there's something that's a seismic shift that's going on, you have to be the first to market, right? You have to make sure that you go all in. But you have to do it in areas where there's permission to play for you, and that where you're going to be going in is going to be logical for customers for you to participate, you know? And so for us, that was in a few areas. That was going to be, can we make sure that we, one, use AI embedded in the fabric of every single one of our products? That's the obvious one. But two, we're kind of in the era like how the gold rush was, where the people that made the money in the gold rush were the ones that actually sold picks and shovels. And if you think about Cisco, we provide AI infrastructure to power AI. And so that's a pretty important dimension that we had to get perfected and right. And we didn't want to announce it until we actually had something meaningful to talk about, rather than just, because otherwise you lose credibility when you just start, you know, spouting things that are going to be 3 years out. You lose a lot of credibility. So we wanted to make sure that we stayed patient, and we kept building, and we said, now when we're ready to go out and make sure that we release it, let's make a big moment out of it, which was today. And then the third area, which I think is going to be so consequential to society, is around this whole notion of securing AI itself, so that AI safety is a pretty big deal. And I think that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger of a problem as time goes on. And I think you're going to have to put some kind of guardrails. I think there's going to have to be some level of intervention, not intervention, but like, you know, a degree of involvement from the government for policy setting, because it can't be a free-for-all. You have to make sure that there's some degree of consistency so AI doesn't take a life of its own. And AI is in service of humans, not the other way around.
Yes, very wise and pragmatic approach, particularly when you're addressing enterprise, that they aren't the first movers on these things. They never want to be first, which is why right now our research suggests, and I think I heard glimmerings of this on stage this week, is that there's a lot of experimentation going on that are moving into POCs, but nowhere close to mass adoption of these technologies. So I want to dial this out a little bit. First of all, congratulations on the Chief Product Officer role. This is great.
Thank you.
Nothing integrates multitudes of different technologies into a consistent platform than having a Chief Product Officer. I think it's a super important role. So the product development process in Rational, it's a long term. Like, you have to make long-term bets, especially when you want to change architectures. But what is it that you're doing today to deliver AI value right now?
So most of the things that we announced today are all available in market either now or within a matter of a month or two. Right? So these are not like, overly futuristic. And that was actually part of the reason why we waited for this long. We didn't want to go out and announce something that was going to be a year away.
Right.
And so what are we doing? At the basic level, we're saying, let's make sure that AI infrastructure is plug and play. We simplify AI infrastructure so that when organizations need agility in their data center, we can provide that to them with having the right level of compute, the right level of networking. And like, the way I think about this is there's been conventional wisdom in AI for the past few years. The three things are really important. The first one is compute, the second one is models and algorithms, and then the third one being data. We've always known this, but the market's now completely turned around on this one and believes exactly what we believe, which is networking and security are just as important as compute, models, and data. And so there's a five core kind of foundational components that are needed: compute, model, data, networking, security, in order to make sure that you can power AI to its fullest potential. And so we need to make sure that we deliver that in the biggest way possible. And so what we announced today was, a low latency, high performance switches that are power efficient. We announced today that we're going to make sure that we have training servers for AI. But what we've also announced is we'll have inferencing workloads that can actually be serviced with AI pods, with a varying level of classes of configuration that we can go out and deliver. And I think that's a pretty important area to get into, because most people want to spin up capacity within a very short order. And if you think about the delta between the training dollars being spent right now and inferencing is going to have a huge hockey stick curve, because right now there's about $200 billion spent in training. Guess how much is being spent in inferencing? $5 billion.
That makes
not spent, actually getting derived from inferencing. So how much revenue is being derived? It's about $5 to $10 billion. And so I do feel like there's a tremendous opportunity for having the right level of simplification in AI infrastructure, so that as that inferencing volume goes up, we are right there to go take it. So I don't think we're in any way, shape, or form over here late in the market.
Yeah, I think our data suggests something very similar. The enterprises are adopting at a much more conservative pace, which I think all of us have alluded to. They're all very interested. A lot of them are experimenting, some in the cloud. Right. But the thing, Jeetu, that makes so much sense about what you're trying to do, offering inferencing pods that are available, can be put on data center infrastructure of these enterprises, is that's where a lot of the data is.
That's right.
So we all know that energy costs, egress and moving data is incredibly expensive. It's not sustainable at scale. And then on top of that, we also know that there is going to be an inverse of that training and inference number at some point. The training will stay, but inferencing is going to scale at probably a pretty rapid inflection, right?
Yeah, I think right now, if you think about a GPT-4 o1 class model, it costs between $3 to $5 billion to train, right? It used to be about $1 billion for a GPT-3 class model, so it's actually gone up quite a bit. And we are now at a point where we are actually running out of publicly available data that's available for free to go out and train these models. However, there's about 150x scale proportion of enterprise data that is not training these models yet, that is available in the market, that every company in the world is going to want to go out and want to use for their own purposes, so that they can actually create a unique differentiation in the market for themselves. And that's going to require a bunch of scaffolding and a bunch of infrastructure and a bunch of plumbing that you need to make sure that you deliver to the market. And I think a company like Cisco, we do the boring work so that our customers can do the really exciting work, and so.
Picks and shovels, so that the goal people will get the goal. But the funny thing is, we are going to see, and both of us, I think, have written about this, smaller models, RAG and fine-tuning.
Exactly.
Lots of optimizing, and companies want to take that proprietary data, not use all that unnecessary data, lower energy, more efficiency, better answers, and we're seeing it with what's in the market right now with these open source models, for sure.
The future, as it gets more agentic, as there'll be multiple agents that talk to each other and actually get work done, you're currently at a point where AI is conducting certain tasks pretty well. But what we're not doing right now is conducting full end-to-end workflows and jobs really well. And that's going to happen over time. And as that happens, you're going to need more and more infrastructure. And you're going to need that infrastructure to be plug and play.
So security, I want to pivot. You talk network security. Big concern, safety, security. You've got Hypershield. You've made lots of investments. We'll be talking to Gary Steele, who's Splunk. You brought him, and we'll talk about that. But kind of give us the posture on the security side and its role in AI.
So I think security's role in AI is going to be a very strategic one, because right now, if you think about it, one of the biggest concerns that most enterprises have, the reason why enterprises haven't gone all in and taken 15,000 apps to production within the enterprise right away, is because they want to see what the adverse effects might be of this thing, and they want to make sure that they have some guardrails in place. Because that might actually, for companies that have to be highly compliant for regulatory reasons, the companies that have to have things that they need to worry about for a multitude of different reasons, they just have to be cautious as they're moving forward. The way that we see it is AI is going to need to have some guardrails. And security will have to get kind of pretty deeply embedded. And the way that you do it is, when you're building an AI application, I don't think you can rely on some base level of security from the model providers, because you'll have a dozen models.
Sure.
So just like you have multi-cloud, you will have multi-model kind of architectures in place. And as you have multi-model architectures, you need to have a common substrate for security that goes across all the models. And you don't want to have the application developer thinking about building security stacks every single time they build an application. So the only option remaining then is if you say that the model providers aren't the ones who provide security as the best place, and if the application developer doesn't have to build security every single time, then you need to have an independent security company that actually can provide security across all the models. And that's what you should expect Cisco to do more of that. Now, the other place which is really important for us to think about is, as data center architectures evolve because of the scale proportions of AI, you will see that you will have to rethink security architectures from the way that they used to be, from highly monolithic and perimeter-centric to highly distributed. And as you actually get to highly distributed architectures, we think what we've done with Hypershield is a first of its kind, and it's a category creation moment. And we're being very cautious in how we move forward, because we want to make sure that we take a few customers, get them hyper successful, and then you go from there. But I can tell you that the feedback and the response we've gotten from the market in my 30-year career, I have never seen this response to any product that I've launched.
No, it is provocative for sure in terms of what it does. So it's hard enough to work on products that are delivering value today and in the near future, but how do you look at the future? I mean, it seems like things change every 6 months, 3 months. Some people say every month, but enterprises want to be able to rely on companies who've got a good vision for the future and can move back to protect their investment. I'm curious how you're looking at different opportunities and threats to AI into the future.
The way I think about it, I think there's a difference between being reactive to market movements and being responsive to market movements. And the way to think about this is you have to play the long game. And I think Jeff Bezos has a great kind of learning that he shares with people, which is, don't ask what's going to change. ask what's going to remain the same over the course of the next 10 years.
Right.
And so when we start thinking about that and say, what's going to remain the same? There's going to be a continued demand for more compute and more infrastructure for training models and doing inferencing on models, because those volumes are going to go up.
Right.
That seems like a pretty safe bet.
Sure.
So being in the AI infrastructure business seems like a pretty safe bet. There's going to be continued level of sophistication and compounding of the sophistication of threat actors wanting to do bad things at a nation state level, at an individual level. And so going out and making sure that you can put guardrails around AI seems like a pretty safe bet. There's going to be a continued level of development of AI that'll simplify user experiences. So having AI natively baked into the products, pretty safe bet. If we just take those three things, that's a pretty long-term strategy for us to pursue. And yes, the mechanics might change a little bit, but the core thesis doesn't change. And that's what's so important.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you've got to keep moving data. You got to keep processing data, right?
Yeah.
So you know, I do think we're going to see some major changes in the way we interact with data and the applications and rendering and generative tools, but it's going to be really fun, really exciting. It'd be really awesome to have you come back and chat to us some more about this, Jeetu.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
Maybe your first time, but let's not let this be the last.
This is I'm a big fan of your show, and I'm a big fan of both of you on
Thank
on
you.
Twitter and on social media, on LinkedIn, and so it's a pleasure to kind of see you. And we've known each other for a while, so it's not like we've not known each other. But I'd love to come back again. So thank you for having me.
Let's have you
Thank
again
you.
soon, Jeetu. And let's have you back again soon. We appreciate all of our community being part of all of these episodes here in Los Angeles with Cisco, and of course on all of these 6-5 shows with Patrick and myself. But for this episode and for Patrick and I, it's time to say goodbye. See y'all later.